Hello, students. I hope you all must be fit and fine. Okay, today we are going to start with our next chapter, next unit, and this is our first lecture of this chapter. Uh, and as you all can read out from the screen, the name of the chapter, the new chapter, that is a chapter 2, or you may call it as a unit 2, is the cell, the fundamental unit of life. So let's start with this chapter. Before starting this, I want you all to memorize your class 4th or 5th science lectures. Okay. If you remember in class 5th or 4th, we have seen the basic difference between the living and non-living. This was our that basic sciences we have all studied in class 4th onwards, I think. Okay, so what is the basic difference between the living and non-living thing? And we have also seen some of the characteristics that are shown by the living organism and not shown by the non-living thing. There were many characteristics. Living thing can grow, non-living cannot grow. Living things can breathe, they cannot breathe, they can excrete, they cannot excrete. Okay, many characteristics were we have studied. Okay, but one very important characteristic of the living thing which make it as a living was its composition. The thing which makes up the living being, that is, they all were made up of cell. This was a very important and the basic characteristic of living thing which make it as a living and differentiate it from the non-living. That is, it is made up of cell. You can see in this slide, there are many characteristics are given. Living thing can grow and develop. They can obtain and uses energy. That is the respiration. They eat food. Okay, they reproduce. They make copies of their own kind. They respond to the stimuli. Okay, they respond to the environment. They respond to the stimuli. And one very important thing, if that is, they all are made up of cells and they have the different levels of the organization. So now in this chapter, in this video, we are going to study about the composition of the living thing. That is, how they are made up of, what make up the living thing. Okay, so the living things or the living beings, they are made up of cell. So just see this slide again. See this one, this slide, that is but before starting this, I want you to imagine something. What you are going to imagine? Imagine the trees in forest, fish in ponds or rivers, the birds in sky, the worms in soil, tiger in jungle, cactus in desert, or your parents, families, or your the classmate sitting with you in class. All the things which I have mentioned, or you can see in this slide also, some of the things that I have mentioned are seen in the slide also. They all are made up of cells, or any living thing in this planet is made up of cell. Yes, that means that cells are the building blocks of life. Before starting this cell chapter, as we will deal with this cell chapter in detail, first of all, you must grab the interest. You should have the curiosity of learning this chapter, learning about the cell. Okay, do you all know that there are more nerve cells in your body than star in our galaxy, that is a Milky Way? If blood vessels in which the blood is contained placed end to end, they will cover around 100,000 kilometers. It means 2 times trip for you around the earth. And if this is not all, take out the DNA from the nucleus and stretch it. It will stretch it up to the sun. Not once, not twice, not thrice, but up to 600 times. Okay, so is this reason not enough for you to grab some interest and start invading that what is cell and what is cell made up of, what are its type, how our body is made up of. Okay, so now today we are going to appreciate the wonder of life. We are going really microscopic. That means very tiny. Microscopic means very tiny. Each and every minute part of our body, each and every millimeters of our body is made up of cell. What we look like, how we are behaving, what is the composition of our body, everything is made up of cells. Yes, you are very correct. Cell is that which makes the life mission possible. Now, at this point, can you imagine how many cells are there in our body? There are millions, billions? No, you are wrong. Not millions, not billions, but there are trillions of cells present in our body. Okay, so now today we will start and we will learn more about the. Okay, so but there are some organisms which have only one cell in the body. As I've said, that can you imagine how many cells are there in the body? Millions, billions, trillions. But there are some organisms whose body is made up of only one cell. They are called as unicellular organisms. And there are some organisms, some living beings whose body is made up of millions and trillions of cells. So in this way, we can divide, we can differentiate, or we can make a category. Okay, unicellular organism and a multicellular organism. Unicellular organisms that only have a single cell. And what are multicellular organisms? Organism consisting of many cells. Now some examples also. This all you have to learn because this is often asked in your test papers. Examples of unicellular organism whose body is made up of only one cell. Very good and common examples are the amoeba, bacteria, paramecium. What is amoeba, bacteria, paramecium? This all you will study in detail in either in the class 7th or later on in this chapter. Okay, and multicellular organism, plants and animals. That means we all are multicellular organism, and all the plants, they are also multicellular organism. That means their body is made up of trillions of cells, and amoeba, paramecium and bacteria, their body is made up of only one cell. What is the organization of cell? How these cells in the multicellular organisms are grouped? Are these trillions of cells are jam packed? Okay, no, this is not the way, but they are organized. Okay, they are organized in a very orderly manner. How? See this one, see this slide, and see, start from the bottom. Cells, they are the basic unit of life, or they are the fundamental unit of life. Okay, over here I missed one example. That cell, you can compare it with a building also. Okay, as in the building, bricks are the building block. Okay, one brick laid one above the other make up a whole building. In the same way, the cell is also a building block of our life, of living organism. That means they can also be called as a building block of life, basic unit of life, or the fundamental unit of life. All means the same. That means as the brick is making the thousands and lakhs of bricks making up a building, in the same way the trillions of the cells, millions of the cells are making up the whole body. How it is making up an organism, how the cells are grouped together? Cells, when combined together to function for one specific reason, for one specific function, then they are called as tissues. Tissues are nothing but a group of cell, but that group of cell which are working together, sharing common structure and sharing one common function also. Okay, now the tissues, they will come together, different tissues come together to perform different functions. Then they will make up the organs. For example, the heart. Okay, like the cells, like the muscle cells, they combine together to form the cardiac muscle. This is one example. Okay, and cardiac muscles, they all together combine together to form the cardiac tissues. Cardiac tissues combine together to form the heart. Then heart, along with the blood vessels and many other tissues also and other organs also, work together as one team and work together for one common function. Then they will form the organ system. Over here in this example, the heart along with the blood vessels, blood and everything will form the circulatory system. And then this circulatory system, along with many other such system like digestive system, excretory system, and many other systems in our body, will form up an organism, one whole organism. For example, the human being. Okay, so this is the way in which the cells are organized or grouped inside our body. Trillions of cells are not just jam packed, but they are orderly organized according to their functions, according to their structure, and thus they make up one organism. The cell was discovered. What, who was that person who started all this research? Okay, how this cell was discovered. The story starts, but before saying the study of the cell, it starts off about 300 years ago. What we are studying this thing in this time, it was all discovered about 300 years ago. But without mentioning one very important technology over there, this chapter will won't be start. Okay, what was that? With the help of one powerful instrument, the cell was begun to known to human. Can you name that thing? Can you name? That was the microscope. Later on in this video, in the upcoming slides, we will deal with this thing again. Okay, now first of all, we have to know about the scientist, about the gentleman who have discovered this thing, who have contributed a lot in this discovery. That is a cell discovery. So I have listed the name of some of the scientists, but very important thing is that you should pronounce the name of the scientist correctly, because without proper pronunciation, I think you won't be doing the justice to these gentlemen. Okay, so first of all, I think you must repeat at least 10 times what I am repeating. Okay, by pausing it several times. Okay, the first gentleman, the first scientist was Zacharias Janssen. Zacharias Janssen. I repeat it once again. I think you all should repeat it along with me. And by pausing the video, you can repeat it 10 times on your own. Zacharias Janssen. Okay. Now, next one is the most important one and honorable also. That is Robert Hooke. He was the first person to look after the cell. Okay. Robert Hooke. I repeat it once again. Robert Hooke. Then second one, third one, sorry, Matthias, Matthias, I repeat it once again, Matthias Schleiden. Matthias Schleiden. Can you guess after pronouncing Schleiden from where this gentleman was from? He belongs to which country? Okay, later on we will reveal this thing, but guess from where this person was from, the scientist was from. Matthias Schleiden. Then Theodore Schwann. Theodore Schwann. I repeat it once again, but remember you have to repeat it again and again. Theodore Schwann. Then the most difficult pronunciation of these two scientists, last two, Rudolf Virchow. It is not Virchow, it is not Virchow, but it is Virchow. Rudolf Virchow. I repeat it once again. Rudolf Virchow. Rudolf Virchow. And last one is the most difficult one. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. I repeat it once again. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Okay, now we will see what was the contribution of all these scientists one by. So first of all, I asked you one question. What piece of technology made the discovery of the cell possible? Yes, the correct answer is the microscope. And a beautiful picture of microscope is also installed over here for you to look over here. Microscopes have enabled the scientists to study cell in detail. Without the discovery of this thing, without the invention of this thing, microscope, I think the study of the cell would not have been started. Now, see this gentleman, the photo of this scientist, Zacharias Janssen. Zacharias Janssen. In 1580 till 1638, it was a tenure of this scientist, Zacharias Janssen, and he invented the first compound microscope. He invented the first compound microscope. Zacharias Janssen, he was born between the 1580 and 1588 and died in 1638. He was a famous Dutch inventor. Dutch inventor means he was born in the Netherlands. Okay, yes, I know you all must be knowing this thing. When I tell Dutch, that means he is from Netherlands. When I tell English scientist, that means he is from England. Okay, Indian scientist, that means from India. Okay, so he was a Dutch inventor and a spectacle maker. Okay, that is today best known for his associations in the creation of early models of telescope and the compound microscope. He was the first person to discover the lenses which made to the or which led to the discovery of the this one. It was a first compound microscope that was invented by the Zacharias Janssen, and later on it was modified by the various scientists. Anton van Leeuwenhoek and also the Robert Hooke also modified this one. This picture, that is this compound microscope, I think most of you have seen this microscope also if you have visited the bio lab. Okay, these are the microscope that we use in our classes and we use in our laboratories. It consists of series of glass lenses and uses light to produce an image. Okay, so this is the photo of the latest compound. Nowadays, electron microscopes are used. Okay, so now we will start with the little small history, okay, of how the cell was discovered. In 1665, the Robert Hooke made a simple microscope and looked at a piece of cork. Okay, he was the first person to see the cell. Robert Hooke was the first person to see the cell. And he must have said to himself that I wonder. I- First, he saw this thing in a piece of cork, and what I think that he must have asked himself that what this cork would look like under the microscope, and that microscope was a self-designed microscope. So what he did, he sliced it in thin pieces and looked at it under the microscope. And what he saw, what Robert Hooke saw over there, was something that looked like the small boxes. Okay, small boxes. And what he was seeing in that microscope, in the piece of cork, was actually the remnants of the cell in the plant that made the cork. And he thought that these spaces kind of thing look like the little dormitory rooms that monks lived in a monastery. So he called such spaces, such that small boxes, as cellular, because in Latin word the rooms are called as cellula, and thus the term cell came from the Latin word cellula. This slide, see this one, what Robert Hooke saw in the microscope, this thing, and he called it as a cell. Why did he call it as a cell? Because that small boxes, small chambers look like the small dormitory rooms, small rooms in which the monk used to live in monastery. This thing hold cork. What is cork? You must be thinking that what is cork, huh? What was that cork in which the Robert Hooke took slice of that cork and saw it in the microscope? Actually, that cork is actually a plant product. It is the bark of the tree, or from the oak tree it is being taken. Okay, so he has made the thin slices of this cork, and then he saw in the microscope, and what he saw is given in this picture. See this one. This is an oak tree from where the cork is being made. Can you name one or two things over where we use the cork? One example I'm giving you, rest 2 and 3 you have to search it on your own. One is on the bottle of some homeopathic medicine, not that plastic cap, but that cork one. One I have given you, one example I've quoted over here. 2 or 3 at least you have to tell me that where these corks are used. Okay. Another thing, see this one, what Robert Hooke saw in the microscope. This is the cell wall of a cork cell. Now, the next gentleman, next scientist, that is in 1667, Anton van Leeuwenhoek again modified that microscope, which that Zacharias Janssen and Robert Hooke had made, and he created a microscope with a much higher magnification. And see this one, this picture in this slide, this microscope which the Anton van Leeuwenhoek had made. See how beautiful it is and how creative these persons were. Okay, so during the late 1600s, Dutch scientist Anton van Leeuwenhoek designed his own microscope and looked at pond water and milk also. What did he see over there? He saw the living organism that they never knew were there. And he described cells in a drop of pond water and called animalcules. The first time Anton van Leeuwenhoek used the term animalcules for that particular small things which he saw in the microscope in the drop of pond water. Actually, now we are able to tell that these animalcules were basically the bacteria, but at that time that bacteria was not discovered. So he was the first person to see this thing. Now, next scientist, next gentleman in 1838. Yes, he was from Germany. I ask you by looking at the word, by pronouncing Schleiden, can you tell from he belongs to which country? He belonged to Germany. That yes, he is a German scientist and he studied plants and concluded also that plants are also made up of cells. Robert Hooke saw it in the cork. That was that. Okay, then Anton von Leeuwenhoek saw that animalcules in the drop of pond water, and Schleiden saw this thing in the plant cells, and he said that plants are also made up of. Next scientist, he was also from Germany, is also a German scientist, Theodor Schwann. He reported that animal tissues are also made of cells. He was a scientist to tell that animal tissues are also made of cells. He was in 1855, Rudolf Virchow. He proposed that all cells are produced from the division of existing cells. Okay, that is one of the very important point, very important statement that he had. At the end of this lecture, this video, can you able to jot down all the points which these scientists, these gentlemen have said? Yes. And this all is formulated, is summarized in their ideas combined together and in accordance to their view, the cell theory was proposed. What was proposed? Cell theory. And the credit for the cell theory goes to the Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann, and the last point of the cell theory, that is cell comes from the pre-existing cell, goes to the Rudolf Virchow. So now we can also summarize and can tell that what is cell theory? First point of the cell theory, all living organisms, whether they are plant or animal, are composed of one or more cell. If they are unicellular, the body is composed of one cell, and if they are multicellular, their body is composed of many cells. Then second point, cells are the basic unit of structure of all living organism. Cell is the structural and also the functional unit of life. That means our body, our structure, our composition, all coming from the cell. The cell is making up the living body. Okay, and last but not the least, it's very important point that is given by the Rudolf Virchow. All cells originate from the division of pre-existing cells. That means cell is not coming from some heaven or from some galaxy, but the cells are arising by the division of the cell which is already existing. That means pre-existing cells give rise to the new cell. That is also the type of reproduction. Now, if it is all clear to you, one very interesting and small assignment given to you. Now in this chapter 2, in the upcoming videos, I will give you assignments or some very interesting activities for you in the end of all the lectures. Okay, so for this lecture, one quiz I have prepared for you, very small and interesting quiz. See all the slides and you can write it this thing, copy or whatever pages or project papers you are making. Who was the German physiologist who completed the cell theory? Options are given, you have to only choose. Who was a German botanist? Botanist means a person who's studying about the plant. Who stated that all plants are made up of cells? Options are given for. He used a simple microscope in observing cells from a drop of pond water that he called animalcules. Options are given. The first time the animalcules term was used by, you have to are given in this video only. You have to see it again and again. He is a German geologist. Geologist means the person who is studying about the animal. Botanist means a person who is studying about the plant. Zoologist means a person who studies about the animals, who have studied, whose basic interest in the zoology. So I'm a zoologist. My whole education is, I've done my post graduation in the zoology. So I am also a zoologist. I have a great interest in animals. Who stated that all animals are composed of. Then you have to state the cell theory, those 3 points that is also given in this video. You have to see it again and again. All of you, thank you everyone who is watching this video. Keep revising what is being uploaded for you. Stay at home, stay safe, revise your chapter. Okay, goodbye and take care of yourself.